I just wanted to record some thoughts that are on my mind right now. You know, things suck. It seems like there's conflict everywhere. I mean, there are actual wars. We see news reports and sometimes videos or pictures of atrocities, people being shot at while they're just trying to find food. And it made me think, you know, the reason we have laws, and I'm talking like international laws against things like genocide, against things like human rights violations, against, ethnic cleansing and persecution. And the reason that, you know, it's important that countries follow those laws is because we know what happens when laws like that aren't followed. It makes things suck. People lose their freedom. People lose their creative space. Human flourishing goes down. Deaths go up. Knowing that millions of people around the world who don't have to die are dying terrible but preventable deaths reduces overall happiness. And so we learn these things primarily from the collective experience of World War II. And that it was after World War II. We had the Nuremberg trials that persecuted war criminals from the Nazis, and established the system of international law enshrined in the United Nations, with the United Nations Charter, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court uphold these laws and hold violators accountable, whether they're whole countries or officials from governments. And those documents are the evolution of America's constitutional system of Enlightenment thinking, looking at the world as it is, not as you might want it to be from any ideology. And that's the international system built after World War II. But the World War II generation is mostly died off by now. Will die off completely within a few years for sure. And so we forget these things. We forget what it means to have everything suck because we're ignoring international law. I studied diplomacy because I believe it's important to understand why we have these things to keep the peace and make people happier and freer and more creative, and to protect life and ultimately liberty and the pursuit of happiness. That's what it's about. So with the World War II generation dying off, we're forgetting these lessons. And that was, 80 years ago. And students of history know that throughout history, there's periods of peace, there's periods of conflict. A lot of times, those periods of peace, they're really lucky to last 80 years. And that's a testament to how serious and how strong leaders have taken things like international law, the UN Charter, the International Declaration of Human Rights, for so long during the lifespan of the World War II generation, who is now dying off. So we're starting to forget those lessons. Holocaust survivors are starting to die off because they're just old. And so 80-year run of peace is pretty good by historical standards, but when things start being sucky again, like they're starting to be right now, it's important to remember that we can make a choice to remember the lessons of World War II, to remember the lessons of why we have these international laws, and why it's important for leaders to make the choice to not violate human rights, to not violate laws against genocide, ethnic cleansing, and persecution. Because peace is possible, but it takes bravery and leadership and remembering that we're all human beings on this fragile space rock. I mean, this is it. I don't care if you got zillions of dollars. Elon Musk isn't going to go to Mars in his lifetime. That's just the fact. All right, let's stop being distracted by techno-utopianism, religious utopianism, like utopianism and the pursuit of some better can actually create a lot of damage. So, and conflict, because it's much more important to keep things in some sort of balance. Not everybody's going to be happy and get everything they want all the time, but if we can address inequality, which is kind of like the core reason for a lot of the conflicts today, if we can prevent people from dying at home, in our own communities, and overseas, and if we can remember that we have the capacity to choose to cooperate, to choose to compromise with our neighbors, other countries, for the primary purpose of maintaining that essential balance for some sort of stable, peaceful, cohesive society, instead of just pursuing these crazy agendas that give rise to authoritarian personalities who promise the moon, hurt a lot of people in the process, and always end up failing. So that's just what's on my mind right now. We can do better. We have. So for all those reasons, that's why it's important to speak out when human rights are being violated. That's why it's important to not tolerate the trolls and the bullies, or people who say, oh, fuck the UN, it's corrupt and pointless. Like, yeah, every organization is just made up of people, but generally organizations dedicated towards peace attract people who understand how to do it, how to make it work, and why it's important, and how to compromise, and how to negotiate. These are all skills. But we, as individuals in a country and on a planet, have agency to remind our leaders of these responsibilities, not just for our own sakes, but for their sakes too. I was in Hendersonville today, and I noticed that our Congressman, Chuck Edwards, has taken his nameplate off the cigar shop box, and he's taken the signage about being the congressman off of his office door. And I feel like if you're a member of Congress and you're doing a good job, you wouldn't have to do that. So, he's probably proud to be a congressman, and he probably doesn't like that he had to take his congressman signage down. And I'm not trying to, generate any kind of sympathy for Chuck. He's in a position of suffering because of the choices that he's made, and he can make better choices. Different choices. And it's not just Chuck, it's all sorts of leaders like that. We can be good people. I believe people are good to one another. But we're getting bad information on our phones, primarily from, by the way, yes, hostile foreign actors. A lot of the conservatives, Russia. No, it's a real thing. Since before the Soviet Union, the Russian Empire, the Soviets mastered it, putting lies and bullshit into our academic papers or media stream here in the West to pit Americans against one another. And it's an old trick. And it wasn't just the Russians. Every country has done some form of this to other countries one way or another. But the Russians are masters at targeting our cultural divisions to pit us against one another. And it's important that we as Americans understand that, because we're being played. We don't have to be. We're smarter than this. We can get it together, and we can work as people to preserve our freedom, to build peace in our communities and around the world. It's not rocket science, but you just have to get above that emotional reaction that people are being fed a lot, to realize, what choices do I need to make to be better here at home and around the world?